If you're looking for the best beginner dirt bike for 12-year-olds, there's a few things that you need to know before you buy a dirt bike. And why is that? Well, if you buy the wrong one, it's going to be more dangerous or potentially more expensive. So for example, what kind of dirt bike riding are you going to be doing? There's a big difference between a trail bike and a race bike. And if you are a beginner, or if you're buying this for your son or daughter or your grandson, you definitely want to stay away from the race bike, so a motocross bike. And the reason is motocross bikes have power characteristics that make it really hard to ride. For example, they don't have much bottom end power, which is where you'll be riding most of the time when you're starting out. But then once you get up into the higher RPM, it's extremely snappy. So it's like, and this can be really intimidating, and it can cause beginners to crash very easily because it feels uncontrollable, because you haven't learned the fundamental techniques of riding a dirt bike. And these race bikes that I'm referring to are 85cc two-stroke motocross bikes, such as like a Yamaha YZ85, KTM Husqvarna 85, or like the Honda CRF 150R four-stroke liquid-cooled race bike. They're great bikes for what they are, racing, but you should not be starting out on them. Not only are they harder to ride, but they're more expensive and they require more maintenance, which takes more of your time and your money. So what is a good beginner bike? Well, you got to start with what size to look for first. So if you're in the 4'6" to 4'10" height range, you want to be looking at a dirt bike with a 26 to 29 inch seat height. But if you're in the 4'10" to 5'4" height range, you want to be looking at a bike with 27 to 33 inch seat height, depending on your inseam length. So what are the best beginner dirt bikes for shorter 12-year-olds? Well, you want to be looking at the Honda CRF 125F, the Yamaha TTR 125, and the Kawasaki KLX 140. For these 125s and the 140, they have small wheel and big wheel models, and the main difference is the wheel sizes are 14 and 17 or 16 and 19 inch wheels and tires, as well as the seat height, where the small wheel is about 2 inches lower than the big wheel or the large wheel models. So if you're under 5 foot, you probably want to be on a small wheel, and if you're over 5 foot, you probably want to be on the big wheel. But if you have a dealer near you, it's best if you go to the dealer and sit on the bike, and if you can touch with 1 foot on the ground, then you're probably big enough. And Kawasaki also has the KLX 140 RF, which is the full-size wheels if you want a smaller engine with less power, but you still want the full-size wheels, where the bigger wheels, they handle a little bit better, they roll over obstacles better, and there's a little bit more stability, which is why it's better if you're a taller 12-year-old. Now, just quick comparison between the Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki. The Honda CRF 125F and FB, starting in 2019, it has fuel injection as opposed to a carburetor, which the Yamaha and Kawasaki have. So if you don't like dealing with jetting, messy jets, or the carb getting dirty really quickly, the fuel injection I really like. It's one reason why we upgraded some of our bikes to the Honda trail bikes. But that doesn't mean the Yamaha and Kawasaki are bad bikes, because we've had those as well, and they're all really solid bikes, and they all come with electric start, although some of the older Yamahas only have kickstart. But the biggest thing is finding and getting one that is clean and well maintained, because since these bikes are so reliable, a lot of people neglected to do maintenance on them, so they ran them low or out of oil. They never changed the air filter, and these are things that'll really kill and wear out the engine much faster. And then moving up to the full-size bikes, so maybe you or your kid is a really tall 12-year-old, like over 5'4". They might want a full-size dirt bike if they can handle the extra weight and extra power. Now, the power, it's still not aggressive like a race bike. It still has the smooth, beginner-friendly characteristics that make it easy to ride, but it's just noticeably more power. So if you feel cramped on a big wheel 125 or 140, then you might want to consider these bikes, starting with the Honda CRF 250F, which has electric start and fuel injection, and first started in 2019. It took over for the Honda CRF 230F, and then you have the Yamaha TTR 230, which has been around since 2005 and hasn't really changed at all. It's electric start, but it still has a carburetor, so if you don't mind dealing with a carb, that's a great bike to get because it's a little bit cheaper than the Honda and the Kawasaki. And the Kawasaki KLX 230R is only a few years old as well. Electric start, fuel injection. The specs are really similar to the Honda 250F. It just has slightly less power, and the wheelbase is a little bit shorter, so it'll turn a little bit easier in the tighter trails. But overall, if you're a beginner, you're probably not going to notice much difference between all of these bikes, which means that you have more options. But you also need to compare the prices of new versus used. So most of these trail bikes that I recommend are going to be in the $3,000 to $4,500 price range if you're buying brand new from a dealer. Now you can buy a knockoff or Chinese brand pit bike from like Amazon, which is like $1,000 or $1,500, and they can work. But the reason I normally don't recommend them is because they're not as reliable. They're not built as well. They're not going to be as durable. So the parts are going to wear out a little bit quicker. They're going to break more easily if you're constantly falling, and parts might be harder to find or impossible if you need replacement parts. Or if you're looking for a used bike because you want to spend like less than $2,000, you can look at the Honda XR100, Yamaha TTR 125, because that's been around since the year 2000, the Kawasaki KLX 125, or the Suzuki DRZ 125, which are the exact same bikes, just different color plastics. Or you can also look at the Honda XR200, which is getting harder to find, but a solid full-size trail bike with a low seat height. Those bikes are all cheaper, but they also only have kickstart. And if you're just getting started dirt biking and want to ride trails but don't want to crash and get hurt right away, I have a free training for you. It's a guide that shows you how to quickly build your confidence so that you don't crash and get hurt right away. The link is in the description below. I'm Kelly Fager from Motocross Hideout. Learn more, ride more, so that you can stay safe and have fun for many years to come.